Good morning, students. Let's continue with our yesterday's topic and talk about Tolstoy's views about Shakespeare's play King Lear and about his and the character of Fool and why he chose King Lear out of so many other plays of Shakespeare as the target of his criticism. We see that Orwell proceeds to examine Tolstoy himself and notes that the special hatred that Tolstoy reserved for King Lear could be due to the curious similarity of his own story to Lear's and to the fact that he suffered disappointments of the same nature after renouncing his estate, his aristocratic title, and his copyrights. Besides this, Tolstoy ignores Shakespeare as a poet because he is unable to understand and enjoy his poetry. We see that a great number of Shakespeare's plays are valued by his readers for their use of language and their verbal music. Tolstoy says, or we can say that he is right in saying that Lear is not a very good play as a play. It is too drawn out and has too many characters and subplots. According to him, one wicked daughter would have been enough, and then Edgar is a superfluous character. Indeed, it would probably be a better play if Gloucester and both his sons were eliminated. This Tolstoy thinks. But the atmosphere of the play and its pattern demand all such things, these characters, this background. Shakespeare was writing a tragedy, he was not writing a melodrama or a puppet show or a comedy. So, all these things are required. Then Tolstoy sees no justification for the presence of the character of fool. According to him, the character of fool is unnecessary. But Orwell defends him by saying that the fool is integral to the play. He acts not only as a sort of chorus, making the central situation clearer by commenting on it more intelligently than the other characters. And he also acts as a foil to Lear's frenzies. His jokes, riddles, and scrapes of rhyme, and his endless digs at Lear's high minded folly, ranging from mere derision to a sort of melancholy poetry, are like a trickle of sanity running through the play. A reminder that somewhere or other, in spite of the injustices, the cruelties, intrigues, deceptions, and misunderstandings that are being enacted here, life is going on much as usual. In his Impatience with the Fool, one gets a glimpse of Tolstoy's deeper quarrel with Shakespeare. His reaction is that of an irritable old man who is being pestered by a noisy child. Actually, Tolstoy was not capable of tolerance or humility. He is a his is a quarrel between the religious and the humanist attitudes towards life. His bent of mind is religious, whereas Shakespeare, he believes in humanism. So it is this quarrel that haunts him in his quarrel with Shakespeare. Shakespeare may not be a systematic thinker, nor did he claim to be one, but he is not a vulgar hack either, as Tolstoy declares him. Shakespeare's later plays have a meaning and even a moral. and they revolve around great problems of humanity, the general weaknesses of human beings like ambition, jealousy, greed, renunciation. As renunciation is also the theme of the subject of Lear, King Lear. Lear's rage is neither strange nor unnatural, but is caused by his despairs and agony. It is only when he is angry or mad with anger that Lear talks senseful things. In moments of calm and peace, he does not speak any significant words. It is only at the end he realizes, as a sane man, that power, revenge, and victory are not worthwhile. And this fact of the story has not caught proper sight of Tolstoy. Tolstoy's attitude to the play must have been influenced by the theme, that is, renunciation. Renouncing power, giving away lands, was a subject on which he had reason to feel deeply. Because just like King Lear, he has also renounced his estate, his aristocratic title, and even his copyrights. So, this is the reason why he is so sentimental on this topic. Perhaps the moral of King Lear was also not clear to Tolstoy, or he misunderstood it, because the play has two morals. The one is the ordinary one, drawn by the fool. I quote, "Don't relinquish power, don't give away your lands," unquote. But then there is another moral contained in the story, and it remains in a way hidden. It is not uttered by any character. And what is it? Again, I quote, "Give away your lands if you want to, but don't expect to gain happiness by doing so." Because probably you won't gain happiness after all this. If you live for others, if you want to live for others, you must then live for others only, and should not expect that the things should come to you the other way around and you'll get some advantage out of it. So, obviously, neither of these conclusions could have been pleasing to Tolstoy. Tolstoy was a religious man, and he actually thinks that he was a saint, but he was not a saint. He tried very hard to make himself into a saint, and the standards he applied to literature were otherworldly ones. A normal human being does not want the kingdom of heaven. He wants life on earth to continue. He wants all the worldly pleasures. This is not solely because he is weak or sinful and anxious for a good time. Generally, people get a fair amount of fun out of their lives, and they want to continue to live on this earth only. The humanist attitude is that the struggle must continue and that death is the reward of life. So, Shakespeare also believes in this humanism, in this thought, but Tolstoy was a bit different. Although Shakespeare was not a saint in the manner of Tolstoy, he was a human being and a practical one, and in some ways not a very good one, but his approach is humanistic, whereas Tolstoy's approach is religious, or we can say pseudo-religious in a way. Thus we see that the main theme of the essay is a defense of Shakespeare as a humanist, and one we can summarize the debate in these words, like Tolstoy, he was because he has grown old, so the elderly Tolstoy, hated the world because people suffered in it. But he thought that the world was so organized that one could achieve happiness and redemption by renouncing the everyday temptations and evils of it as a person. So Tolstoy tried to renounce his title, his estate, money, and copyrights, everything he gave up, and he became a peasant. But he, after that also, he was not happy. So, just like Lear, he found that abdication is not easy. In conclusion, Orwell mentions how little difference Tolstoy's thunderous attack on Shakespeare has made. According to Orwell, the only criteria for the merit of a work of art is that it continues to be admired, and hence the verdict on Shakespeare must be not guilty. Since more than 100 years after Tolstoy's pamphlet, Shakespeare remains as admired as ever. So we see that these are the main ideas of this essay, in which Orwell tries to defend Shakespeare against the charges made by Tolstoy. And I hope that now this topic is quite clear to you. Thank you.